Um, Hello, everyone. Don't know if anyone is out there right now, but I am here, Professor Mark Moss. Uh, this is OMSCS 6310, Software Architecture, and I will be supporting your office hours for about the next hour. If you have questions, right now I am, please, hope for a little bit of patience. I am running this one that is hosting it for the first time for my system. And right now I'm just trying to make sure that the Q&A is actually up and working. So okay, I am not sure that my Q&A is working, and right now I'm getting a message that says this feature is disabled. So I'm working that technical difficulty from my end. However, it appears at least that my chat's working fine. So feel free to post something on chat if you're there and you have an immediate question. I'm working on getting the Q&A up, in which case we can do what we normally do. But I'll respond on that one as well on chat for now. Hmm, rough, rough, rough. Hmm. Okay. First off, my apologies. Apparently, though I'm searching every possible way I can to find out what's wrong with the Q&A section, and we've had this before on occasion where it seems not to function properly. I am viewing the questions. I know, Daniel, you're there asking about the ability to post questions. Belinda, Saminasan, a few of you are out there, and I'm actually reading your great discussions about everything from cloning the VM to using X as the variable for minimization when you make the Garobi constraint. So I'm seeing that there. And like I said, you feel free to use the group chat if needed. You should hopefully be able to post with that. Like I said, I've worked to try to turn on as much as I can from my side. But so if you'd like to continue posting comments there, I was trying to read through to see if there's anything that I can answer directly. Mhm. Okay. Said, let me see if I can answer some of the ones here. I know, let's see, there is a question about test cases. Saminatan, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Are test cases independent? That is, if student one is taking course one in test case one, and then the same student one, is taking course 15 in test case two, should we consider that they've already taken? Yeah, test cases are completely separate and independent. The four test cases, students, I'm just using the students numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, just to be a nice serial way of identifying the students, but things do not carry over between test cases. So test cases 1, 2, 3, yeah. And I know I saw that Daniel answered that, but I just wanted to make sure, yeah, totally independent. Oh, Daniel, sorry. 820, your question. Scrolling down. Yes, your question related to array initialization of X. Hang on. Okay, I see that you're citing a link, the Workforce 2 example. Fundamentally, I'm going to say if you're looking to basically initialize and constrain or use that X variable to set your objective constraint. Of course, the X is designed to measure the size, the largest size of a classroom in each given semester. Okay, so that's the intent of the X. I'm looking at the Workforce 2 now. I don't want to just give you a blanket, yeah, go do it, because the Garobi may be correct, but I want to make sure you understand it in the context of our problem. So over in the actual problem description, the Workforce 2 may show you how to set the variable X up, and then you do have to tell Garobi to minimize on that. However, the problem, the actual project description in that paragraph, I think it's near the middle to bottom of page 7. That's the one which tells you the equivalent formula you want to put on the left side, or gives you examples of the formulas you need to put on the left side for that X variable. So looking at the Workforce 2 example, give me just 1 second because I haven't looked at this specific one and I kind of want to make sure. Hmm. Well, um, my my immediate answer is, though I see what the workforce is doing to some degree, they're actually using a lot more of the features of Gurobi to do things like search for the optimal value, and they're doing status checks for unbounded and infeasible explicitly. For hours, normally you would only need to use Gurobi's maximize, or in this case, minimize variable to then do the optimization. So let me see. So I will come back to that. If I can find a slightly better example for you, I will try to suggest one for doing the Gurobi for that. I know we show you the Gurobi in a later portion that actually includes how to set it up near the bottom, one of the constraints. I will see if we can find one that more clearly shows the maximize and minimize portions of it. But otherwise, like I said, the portion at the very bottom of the project one, version 2 handout has fundamentally what the Gurobi should look like. You're welcome to look at other details of Gurobi. What you're looking for is just a very, very basic minimization problem, but take a look at that. And Jeremy, thanks. I just saw you pop that up. Jonathan, very quickly, your question is for the course availability CSV, does term 0 equal fall, 1 spring, and 2 summer? So fall, yeah, 2016 is semester 0, but term 1. Actually, the way I'm handling it, especially to be consistent with the project description example, Jonathan, really, I'm just thinking fall 2016 is semester 1, spring is 2016 semester 2, and so on, numbering them from 1 to 12. So 4 years, 3 terms, or I'm using the concept semester, but for our purpose, it doesn't matter. 3 terms or semesters per year, and they always go fall, spring, summer. In the course availability CSV, I may have numbered them 0, 1, 2, just so you could use neat little modular arithmetic if you wanted to, but fundamentally it's just telling you in the course availability every fall each year it's available, or every spring, because most of them are either fall only or spring only, or then all, you should see 0, 1, 2. So yes, that's, I believe, what those mean. And if you give me just 1 second, I will double check in that file for you just to make sure that that's there. Yeah. Yeah, and yes, that is correct. And I should remember my own writing that I actually did generate that entire set of test cases. If you look at the bottom of the document, Summer 2016 Project 1 test cases, it gives you the key for those other file formats. So at the very bottom of page 3 of that test case is the PDF that accompanied them. Yes, course availability. The semester code has the value 0, 1, and 2. But don't let that confuse you. Like I said, in all the formulas and so on, semester 1 is fall for the first year. 2 and 3 are spring and then summer. And then semester 4 is fall for year 2, and so on. So hopefully that answers that question. Jeremy, thanks for the link. If I get a second, I will see if I can take a look at that one. That might be. Yeah. And for what it's worth, Jeremy, I think the link you posted to the I think they're calling it is the MIP1.java, looks, feels, and smells a whole lot closer to what you should be looking at, especially things like the subtle things. I know they only have three Garobi variables, but they're all binary variables, which is what you're looking for. And they're using a basic maximize. You want to change, you may want to change that to Garobi minimize as opposed to maximize. But yes, that example I think is a little cleaner. The workforce examples got quite a bit more complication, and that would be my one fear. Not saying it doesn't work, but you may be putting yourself through quite a bit more trying to use that one as a model. So the link posted by Jeremy, I think, is going to be probably more appropriate. Mhm. Okay. Oh, a few more questions. Okay. Daniel, I know you just posted one about the two-class constraint, and you're getting a basically an error with that. Yeah, fundamentally, when you say you copy pasted in the code for the two-class constraint, uh, I'm going to see if I can pull up my Piazza here as well. And I will take a look if you give me a number. you post a number, and I'll take a look at that and see at your code a little more closely. I'm a little fuzzy going to Jeremy's question. I'm a little fuzzy about what the middle parameter 0.0 in the add variable example. And actually, say let's take a look at the Gurobi add variable documentation first, just to make sure, because normally that should be and okay. And hang on one second. I'm just bouncing back and forth between windows. Okay, so wanted to make sure that I gave you the accurate information. So, Jeremy, on your question about, yeah, on your question, yeah, and I see some people have chimed in. Fundamentally, if you take a look at the Gurobi reference manual, there's a couple of add variable procedures in there, but the one that fits best is actually the model add variable, which is the five parameter function. And the middlemost value is objective, which is an objective coefficient for the new variable. Yeah, it seems odd that that is 0. So I would have to look at that a little bit more closely. 1 is, of course, the normal value for that. But yeah, so yeah, that's there. Daniel, I see your note about number 134. Give me just a second. I will go take a look at that one and see if I can give you some immediate feedback. Okay. Okay. My apologies, everyone. I haven't frozen and your video feed isn't dead. Just taking a second to check an answer, or check, I should say, my response. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let me see if I can answer two with one. Daniel, thank you. I appreciate your patience. Here's my response. I think the steps you're taking to create the constraint are correct. Here's my question to you to take a look. And I notice you're using quite a few print lines. You print out max course constraint and so on. Are you sure, thinking like object-oriented programming with persistence, after you create that first max course constraint for a student for one of the semesters, after you create it for a student for one of the semesters, do you clear in any way that constraint, or are you constantly building that constraint, which could lead to the problem? And I don't know if you quite, what I'm saying is when you build a constraint, you use the max courses constraint to make sure that student one in semester one only takes 2 or less courses. If you use that same variable for the next constraint, are you sure you're not over constraining it if it still includes all of those left-hand terms and you just added a whole bunch more terms and then you said those are less than or equal to 2, and so on and so forth? I would suggest that might be what you should check. And that's a good general point for everyone. When you create that variable and you're using these variables, are you sure that your clearing terms is necessary? And you don't even necessarily have to do an explicit clear command. You probably can find one in Gurobi. You could also start with a fresh expression. Okay, just something to look at without giving the answer. Jeremy, yeah, sorry, I haven't taken a look at the MIP, but I'll get back to it if I can. Saminathon, yeah, should we use only numbers in our code, or can we assign appropriate value? Absolutely, completely up to you. There's no requirement to use the numbers or to use the terms, whichever works best for you. We really just want you to kind of get used to thinking about the problem and some of the different variables, but you otherwise can keep it simple. Simple to the point where, remember, we do want you to at least include 2 or you should be looking at like 3 classes at least, not one big monolithic program. But otherwise, how you arrange those classes, you can do any way you want. Also, remember the point I brought up in the project file that though we give you those files to load the data, if that makes it easier for you, you're also welcome to some degree to hard code that in for this problem. Project 3, you'll want to be able to read files in, and we can talk about file format and so on later. But you're welcome to use those files to read that data in, but you can hard code it. And yeah, numbers, or you could use terms or something like that. That is just symbolic strings or whatever, if you want. Okay. Belinda, question on the VM clone below. Let me take a look at that. I might have to request you post that one on Piazza. I've worked with the VM before. I use it myself. I did not set that up. That was one of our super sharp TAs. But let me take a look at your question, starting with some of the Piazza posts. Yeah, creating clones of VMs and testing the final code to be copied. It's mean creating copies of the Okay. Yeah, I think what they're getting at is I take it you do know the software engineering ISO file, all I think 4.7 gig or some insane size of it, but that's as small as we could get that thing, so it was pre-configured. You have that file. Once you turn it on in VirtualBox, there should be a way to create a clone of it from there. That is, so you have the one you're using as a development environment. Okay, you have the one you're using as a development environment with VirtualBox. Use that, work on it, get it working, and you're happy and stuff. What we're saying is then, as a matter of fact, in VirtualBox, while that's running, or I should say, when you have VirtualBox open, you'll probably want to power down the virtual machine, but you should see like what's called the Oracle VM VirtualBox Manager. And I have mine up just to make sure I'm walking through it, not leading you astray. You'll have on the left, for example, a list of all the virtual machines you have active. So it may only be one. You may only have the 6310 virtual machine, that's fine. If you, and I'm on a Mac, so I have slightly different rules, but should be fundamentally the same. If you control right click, or you right click on it, probably in Windows, control click, you will see something that says clone. And what clone will do is clone will create a controlled copy of that VM. Now, the reason why we suggest this in general is, and we see this in a number of classes, ours and so on, sometimes when you're working on an environment, you're busy, you're making changes, you're setting things up. Oh, let me tweak this configuration file. Let me tweak that. Let me put this file over here, that file over there. And you get it so that it's running on your VM and it's just humming along and everything looks great. Then you send it into us and we respond with I'm sorry, it's not working. There may be some crazy little configuration setting you did on your VM, so it works on yours, but when we run it on ours, the fresh initial one, it doesn't work. So that's the whole gist of it. But fundamentally, yeah, you shouldn't need other copies. You actually create the clone from within VirtualBox. So like I said, pull it in. And I think you do have to, quote, power off your machine. I don't think clone likes to run with a live machine because it needs to copy the exact state. And if possible, you want to clone a fresh copy of the VM. So don't, of course, clone the environment that you've modified and done all your work in. Of course, it'll probably hopefully work exactly the same way. We want you to clone off a fresh copy of the VM and then run it on that. And if you've already been doing this, don't panic. You can always if you have the fresh ISO, you can create a new virtual machine, which kind of has basically the same effect. So don't panic if you've already been changing and stuff. You can also just create a new virtual machine with the original ISO, but you want to test it in the original environment just to make sure there's no quirk, because that's what we're going to do. So hopefully that answers your question. Please let me know if not. But yeah, fundamentally, all you need is that ISO, and it's the intent's just for you to be able to test your VM. Okay, I'm just scrolling through the answers. Hopefully, like I said, I've gotten at least the bulk of them, but please, please, please feel free to continue to post a few. It'll take about I'll stay on for another 5 or 10 minutes. I don't think it will cut me off. I think I asked for a little extra time, especially given I was a little late on trying to correct this Q&A issue. So please continue to post your questions. I will get to them as quickly as I can. In the meantime, I'm just going to bounce over here and see if I can take a look for, see if I can answer Jeremy's earlier sort of observation about that coefficient. Okay. Yes. Belinda, let me jump on that question immediately. Yes. Test case 4. And first, my apologies to anyone for any confusion. Bottom line, the way I answered test case 4, was intended not to confuse you, but intended instead just to get straight to the heart of the matter. I designed it and I looked at that test case and I knew immediately it's going to look like you've got 4 students all taking the same course. And using the reasoning from test case 1, okay, you just have one each take it in a term. But the key factor is when you look at course 15, you see that it has prerequisites. And more importantly, just as an example, course 15 is a fall-only course. Course 5, which is one of its prerequisites, is a spring-only. Okay, and it actually, since course 15 is a fall-only course, you kind of know if it has any prerequisites, you can't take it fall term first year because there's no way to have taken your prerequisites. So in my test case example, I just kind of picked course 5 and said, look, you got to take course 5 first. So you can't take course 15 till the second year. And now you've got 4 students trying to take it over 3 terms. And even if you, quote, spread them out, you're only going to get, somebody's got to double up. So that's going to be at least 2. So bottom line, my reasoning was just to get you to focus on the sort of how and why these constraints start, in a sense, pushing on each other. But bottom line is, a number of you have noted in various Piazza posts and so on, yes, course 15 actually has 3 prerequisites, 1, 5, and 6. All of those factor in. And courses 5 and 6 have, I believe, courses 1 and 2, and then course 3 as prerequisites themselves. So by the time you get done with it, to take course 15, you got to take about 5 other courses, 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 before you can get to course 15. So yes, that is still true. So my apologies for any confusion there. I know I just showed the small one, and I said this is one possible schedule. So sorry, a little misleading on my point. Yeah, really, behind the scenes, Garobi's going to have to fit all those prerequisites in. A good rule of thumb, and immediately when I first saw that, I double checked it by hand myself. I'm pretty solid that 2 is the answer. But if you can't look at that and kind of convince yourself immediately, take 2 or 3 minutes, just like playing Sudoku, and see if you can get all those to fit. You should be able to get all the prerequisites for course 15, like the way it's drawn in the test case, to fit in those first 3 terms. And remember, you got your course constraints, like student 1 can only take 2 courses per semester. So can you fit all 5 of those constraints in fall, spring, and summer of 2016 before they take it, course 15 in the fall of that second year? So yes, thanks for bringing that up. Like I say, my apologies for any confusion. I think every other one was clearer, at least test cases 1 through 3. But test case 4, yeah, there's more than that constraint. Yeah. Okay. It's about 9:05. It's approximately 9:05 right now, and I'll take about another 5 minutes of questions. I'll be just online if anyone is there. But otherwise, I'll be signing off. And just a quick one. I know earlier, Jeremy, we were talking about that the Gurobi adding variable, and of course, there's the five, parameter format of which that third, that middlemost, is a zero, and it's officially per the Gurobi manual, quote, the objective coefficient for the new variable. It may have some practical use in some of the much more advanced versions of Gurobi, but fundamentally, for what we're using it for, when we add a variable to the model, we're literally just declaring to Gurobi that this is, as the first two parameters show, 0 and 1 are the minimum and maximum values for that variable. And of course, hopefully everyone picked up, we're just using binary variables. Either you take a class or you don't. There are actually, of course, other forms of linear expression where it's not a binary variable, so it can be some value, some continuous value in between a certain range. That's why those first two parameters, the lower and upper bound, are so important. That third value, that objective coefficient, we set at 0 almost by default. When you think about it, all the variables that you create, Gurobi really uses them like placeholders in your constraints. When you're adding your constraints, that's when you're adding, the terms that build your constraints, when you're adding those terms, that's that coefficient that really matters. And I know, for example, one of the places in our problem, we mention a tighter way, or more potentially, I guess, a little bit more efficient, fewer terms, way to make a prerequisite constraint. You can use those coefficients to do the prerequisite constraint. When you're adding a term to a constraint and then, you push the constraint into the model, that's where the coefficients matter. So the so-called objective coefficient on the variables, when you're just declaring all those variables, don't worry about that being 0. That is not a showstopper. Seems a little odd, but like I said, we really are trying only to touch a sliver of what is the full power of linear programming. We're just doing incredibly straightforward binary variables, linear constraints. May not always feel like that, but what we really are. So don't worry too much about that being 0. You can almost take that one literally, especially either the way it's spelled out in the MIP model is the same way people have generally done it, been successful. So that in and of itself should be a showstopper. Okay. Oh, great. Glad that helps. Thanks. Um, okay, everyone. I'm showing 9:10. here at my location. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I just want to say I hope first I hope everyone had a nice weekend, reasonably safe weekend, and continue. Wish you good luck on continuing to work on your project. Remember, you got this week, you got the weekend to focus on it. For those of you who possibly haven't started at all, please do not let it linger. For those who are working, please continue to post your questions on Piazza, and the my wonderful TAs and myself, we will be reading as quickly as we reasonably can to make sure we answer your questions. And don't hesitate to post questions and look at other questions that are out there, other answers that are out there, and glean insights from that. And of course, you probably noticed on Piazza already, we can post little links, the @ symbol and a number. You can refer to other posts. And I've seen some of the students doing, so I know y'all are probably up on that, but I just wanted to make sure. So with that, have a very nice evening. And take care, everyone. And I will definitely work on the Q&A glitch, and hopefully we will have that solved before the next set of office hours. So take care and have a nice week, everyone.